Welcome back to Inside Politics. Our guests today are Larry Woods, Democratic analyst, and Bill Phillips, who's a Republican analyst. We're talking about the presidential debate that's coming up on Monday night. Gentlemen, a couple things that I think are interesting to watch. Donald Trump's done very well in his debates against the Republican candidates. We had 17 other people or 16 other people with him on stage. This time it's one-on-one. How different does that make things, Larry?
Very different. In the primary debates, Republican primary debates, there were 10 at one point, and then
and they
5
had to have
or
an
6.
undercard. There were so many people. They couldn't get all on one
That's
stage.
right, more than 10. And therefore, a candidate like Mr. Trump, who's all about showmanship from his point of view, he's got multiple opportunities. He's got 10, 12 other people that might have said it wrong or might have said something that gives him an opening. Whereas in this debate, he's only got one opportunity. That's Hillary Clinton, and she has clearly been preparing, either to give him an opening where she hopes he will say something outrageous and outlandish, or she's going to come in and be presidential, stick strictly to policy, and therefore not give him an opening for what he regards as humor.
Bill, it's also a situation where there's going to be an audience, but very different from the normal audiences that particularly Trump deals with in his rallies. And it seems to me in some of the things that he said, and in some cases perhaps where he's maybe gone too far, it's because he's feeding off the crowd, and he may be telling the crowd suddenly what comes into his mind he wants to say about a particular issue. That's not going to be there this time. The audiences are almost prohibited from being able to do anything but applaud at the beginning and applaud at the end. So what kind of impact does that have on this debate?
I think it's going to throw him off his stride some, because you're right, that audience is very controlled. Each campaign can have a small number of people there, but most of the people are supporters of the Commission on Presidential Politics, or debates, and they are very gentlemanly about the whole process, and they don't want to disrupt. And so it's going to throw off his natural tendencies.
Let me ask you both about something that's different that we've never had in a presidential race before, debate before. We've never had a woman on stage. Larry, what does that mean in terms of how Donald Trump relates to Hillary Clinton? He said some awfully rough things about Megyn Kelly and some other people. He said some bad things within the debate context about women. Now, she was a moderator, not the candidate, but how do you act that without looking like you're rude or you're crude on that?
This is what won the New York Senate election for Hillary Clinton when she first ran for office. Rick Lazio, the Republican opponent, acted in a fashion that appeared very rude when he walked across the stage and got right in her face with the pledge or whatever he wanted her to sign. Audiences didn't like that. So you're exactly right. Debating a woman is different than debating somebody of the same gender. And I think Hillary Clinton will use every advantage she's got, and I think Trump will have problems. He'll either hold himself back, and as Bill said, be off his usual performance therefore, or he'll let loose. And I think if he comes across as being rude or hostile in a personal sense, I think that'll cost him a lot of support.
Well, Bill, what does she do in return? How does she present herself? How does she prove herself, because she's a woman in some ways, that she can be presidential and that she can handle whatever's going on up there, so she doesn't come over as overbearing or as stuffy?
Well, I think this morning when we saw that she's changed her inheritance tax plan to up it so much, that's baiting him to get him excited about rich people. And so she can do that.
Might bring her to ask him to release his income tax returns too.
And then get him on the defense, and then he will cut loose. And the thing about Donald Trump is, I will tell you maybe that, Larry, Lion Larry here said such and such, but I won't say that if he's sitting right here. Donald Trump, it doesn't bother him a bit,
And if he does that to the face of an opponent who certainly half the nation esteems and holds in high regard, that's just not going to come off well for the undecided voters.
These two candidates have attacked each other quite a bit. I suspect we'll continue to do that. We'll probably see a good bit of that in this debate. My question is there any place in here during the debate or the rest of this campaign where the candidates will start talking about why they should be president, something positive about what they want to try to accomplish instead of attacking each other? Is there any hope, Larry, for the better angels in this at all?
Some. I think they'll start the first minute that way. I think they'll end the last minute that way. I think both of them will look hard for opportunities to do that. My prediction is Hillary will make and find more opportunities to do that than Donald Trump will.
Yeah, I think with the carnival atmosphere around this particular debate, that if they get too much into policy, people will start flipping over to the NFL football game because they're wanting to fight. They're not really that interested in policy.
Is the audience going to be that big in part, Larry, because people are there because it's like they think it's a NASCAR race and they're waiting for the wreck, or they think it's one of those old NHL games and they're waiting for the fight to happen? Is that what they're looking for?
I think half of it is the NASCAR audience about we're going to watch this till there's blood in the track, and the other half is people think from both sides that this is one of the most important elections in their life, and I think that's right.
Yeah.
So if you're Lester Holt, you've got, I think, 3 topics coming up. You've got America's direction, achieve prosperity, and securing America. Any of those topics helpful to one candidate over the other, just in the broadest sense?
Well, all candidates get trained. Ignore what the moderator says. Speak to your strength or attack your opponent. Or
Just in case you didn't know that.
That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
This is my story.
That's a great question, but let me talk to you about this. Yeah, oh yes, I've seen that a few times. We don't have any of the third-party candidates coming into this. None of them made the 15% numbers in the polls in terms of support to make it. Larry, we have a society that wants choice. Are they really turning off voters in some way, but they don't have any of the third-party people on there?
I don't think most of the public cares whether the third party's there or not. Nobody wants to waste their vote. And different from Ross Perot and different from Ralph Nader in the 92 and 2000 election, at least in my mind, this time the third party, Johnson Well, doesn't necessarily help or hurt a particular side. I can see Democrats who are upset with Hillary and Republicans who are really upset with Donald Trump voting for the Libertarian. It's not all coming out of the Republican or all coming out of the Democratic side. Therefore, I think it doesn't make a lot of difference with the Libertarians.
So let's take a break. We're talking with Larry Woods, Democratic strategist, and Bill Phillips, Republican strategist, about the upcoming debate on Monday night. Could be the critical turning point in the election. Back to continue our conversation after you watch these messages.